Thank you, Javier, and thank you, Victoria, for that lovely introduction. So just want to say, you know the map with all those orange dots in the east? Those orange dots are basically building infrastructure, and they are trying in every way not just to have one Guggenheim Museum, in quotes, not, but iconic building, great museum, great concert hall, great opera house, but maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because they're cities of which they start at 10 million and they go up to 23 million. So there is a part of the world that is really seeking the Bilbao effect, and I will tell you, there is no city that I know of in China that hasn't heard about the Bilbao effect. I've just come from here from Florence. I'm sorry I missed the morning sessions, but I'll be here for the rest of the day. And they tell me that in Florence, this shift that Javier talked about, tourists increasingly are coming from Asia, and the number of Chinese tourists every year doubles year on year on year. Now, for those of you who are involved in the luxury the premium industries, they mostly think of Florence not as the home of the Uffizi, but as the home of Gucci, Pucci, and Ferragamo. And the nice thing is there is a Gucci museum. There's not yet a Pucci museum, but I heard a rumor that there will be. And that there is also a very, very nice Ferragamo museum. I recommend it highly. And so the challenge in Florence is whereas they used to have an audience of highly, and by the way, Spanish tourists are also very big in Florence, which is interesting, for a number of reasons I won't go into. But the thing is that whereas for 200 years, we only talk about 200, the tourists were people who studied the Renaissance, who came to look at the great works of art, who came because it was the home city of Dante and Michelangelo and so on. And now you have tourists who are coming because it's the home of Ferragamo. Big change. And so how to address this? So everywhere, and you in Bilbao, those of you who are from Bilbao or working in Bilbao, you have your own special challenge. I would argue that it's a very good challenge. Now, so the response that we have for Western cities, and we do work in China, both of us do, is different from what you have in emerging cities. So in Western countries, the challenge is no longer building the buildings. The challenge is really planning culturally, how to utilize what you already have in a more effective way to increase quality of life for the population and to increase the quality of the visitor experience for visitors. So let me just say that from our perspective and our experience, the concept of a premium city is really an important one. We are now going in the next 10, 15 years, and I can see that it's a relatively young audience. Your careers are going to span 15, 20, 25, 30 years, maybe 40 years. And what we're going to see is the relative decline in a way of European and North American cities as huge population centers, right? So that's not going to be their distinguishing characteristic. The distinguishing characteristic will be, are they a premium city with high quality of life, high quality of innovation, high quality of attractiveness? And this is a little chart, and I know that they're going to be streaming these talks, but if you'd like to have our talk, you can give us your cards and we'll email them out to you right away, and I'm sure the conference will do the same. The older kind of city had what I would describe as a consumption perspective, which is that the visitor and the resident essentially consumed what was there. That what was there was built by the state or was built by wealthy individuals, and kind of had, if you like, a luxury focus. Shopping, extremely important. Most spectacles are passive if you see a great theatrical perspective. And the perspective of the city is somewhat reactive. In a premium city, it has a production perspective. It's eventful, and I'm going to explain that. It's diverse because, of course, our populations are from many countries, very diverse, many ages and countries. And events are innovative, and they're involving. And I'd like to talk a bit more about that in this next slide, if I'm going in the right direction. Okay, eventful city. I hope this is a term that you're going to remember. I think in the past, and we had cities that have events, right? A city with events is different from an eventful city, and it's important. A city with events looks at events as sectoral. So we have commercial events, we have technology events, we have art events, we have fashion, we have food events, and they're all quite separate. And the people in the city don't get together around those events. They're all separated into different sectors. Whereas an eventful city tries to make them as holistic as possible. So you could have a biennale of art and fashion. You could have a biennale or an annual festival involving art, wine, food, and fashion. The idea is to be more integrative in your events. A city with events is tactical. It looks at each event as something somewhat short-term, whereas an eventful city looks at an event as a strategy to not just attract participants, not just to make some money, but also to achieve whatever the city's strategic goals are. I mean, the city should have strategy, right? A city with events is a container. So you think about a container in which you maybe import events from Paris, from Madrid, from New York, right? And you put them somewhere. Whereas in an eventful city, you're generating events. That doesn't mean you do them by yourself. You may very well have a curator who's based here in Bilbao, for example, and matched up with curators from elsewhere in the world, maybe indeed from Asia, from Japan, from China, from Korea. But you're more creating, innovating new ideas, so it's generating. The other kind of a city with events focuses on competition, whereas an eventful city is about collaboration. One panders to audiences, if you like, find the lowest common denominator, you'll get the most people. So that's always food. So food festival after food festival. Chicago, which I'm going to talk about, got into that, and that can be quite problematic. You can have lots and lots of people, but in the end, they're only coming for the food. Well, it's a very limited impact. Market-led versus being a market leader. Bilbao clearly has been a market leader now for 15 years in terms of building culture as a reason for being here. And again, to make a distinction between spectacle and involvement, that would be something important. And to see that events are not just about city marketing, they're about city making. What you do should be making the city, which means figuring out how to involve the population. Great cities are clusters of neighborhoods. Paris, you don't just go to one place in Paris. Paris, you go to every neighborhood, as many as you can. And if you didn't see Montmartre or you didn't see the Marais on one visit, you will want to go back because you know that Paris has many places. London is the same. New York is the same. Those are right now the mega cultural cities. And every city needs to see that within neighborhoods, they may not be famous, but they have a historical development. The people have character, and involving the neighborhoods in culture is extremely important. Planning culturally means, is an important new idea that we've developed. As consultants, cities, regions, even in the industry actually, would ask us to do a cultural plan. And so you hand over a plan, and it goes on a shelf. And we get paid, so we're happy, but you don't really have the impact that it needs to have. So we have a new idea, which is that it's not about the plan, it's about planning culturally. And that means you take account of the social realities, so I'm talking about neighborhoods, people where they live, the economic realities. I'm not going to repeat what's on the screen because it's proven fact that you can read faster, I hope even in English, excuse the English, and the environment. And all those three things make up culture. We had a big opportunity in working with the city of Chicago on their cultural plan. And of course, Chicago has two very big premiums attached to it. One is a guy named Obama, who just won the election, and he's from Chicago. And the other is the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who used to be the chief of staff for Obama in Washington. He left that job, and when Mayor Daley resigned, retired. He ran for mayor of Chicago and was elected. And he initiated a cultural plan that he wanted to be democratic, involving the people, and this is what we did, seeing that every single person in the city should be involved in the plan. And so these two pictures kind of symbolize that. We had 4,000 people at 40 different public meetings, and everyone who came to the public meeting was asked to write on a board what they liked about their neighborhood. Right? And they all said really amazing things, like one's music programming, but there were thousands of these comments people liked about their neighborhood, what made it, in a way, a premium neighborhood from their point of view. And then we asked them to write on these stickies what culture means to them. And the range was the heartbeat of the city. Culture is expression. Art, food, history, and lived experience. And this was a very, very, very broad public. So engaging the public in even defining what is culture. It's not just the premium brands that make culture, it's the people of a city that make culture. So from our international work, we've learned some important lessons about how to create an eventful city, how to create a premium city. Okay, so first I want to stress the degree to which, and I think you all know this, Bilbao changed the world. It changed the definition of how a city could remake itself through culture. The results are amazing, and if you look at the internet, I think the word Bilbao is actually gets more hits than the word Guggenheim. So if you ever think it's only about the Guggenheim, it's not true. It's Bilbao has become synonymous with the transformation of urban life. The Guggenheim is a strategy. It was a good strategy, but Bilbao is actually, in a way, even the bigger brand. So you all know that, what the project cost, that it was in fact part of a much bigger infrastructure renovation and revitalization of the city's infrastructure, that it continues to attract almost between 800,000 and 1 million visitors a year, which is unheard of, that a new institution keeps that level of interest for a 15-year period. It's really broken the mold, and that, of course, a very high percentage of them are tourists, and that it paid for itself through taxes and return on investment in a very short period of time, as is indicated there. Other cities have also attempted to create vibrant cultural spaces. I think that the challenge for Bilbao, and the challenge for any city that has invested in infrastructure and invested in new institutions, is how to create a bigger impact, both on terms of the people, the creativity of the people, and in terms of tourism and length of stay, because the problem that you have here is that people come, they stay 1-2 days, and why wouldn't they stay longer? And I'm thinking that there should be a marketing campaign like, come for the Guggenheim and stay for the nature, or come for nature and discover the Guggenheim. But it has to be communicated what a great region this is, and that the Guggenheim experience is really just the beginning. And that's the kind of campaign that has to take place. But all of you who are involved in production know that marketing doesn't actually make the product, it only sells the product. So this is where the issue of creating a more vibrant local culture is very, very, very important. A city that is an unlikely city to have succeeded is Vienna. Vienna was, I want to say 20 years ago, an old person city. It was a city where older people went to do the waltz on the big waltz nights. It had a very famous symphony orchestra. It has some fine museums, to be sure. But the people were aging, and there wasn't too many people having children. And also the tourists were aging. And so Vienna did a very daring project. They took a historic district, they invested a lot of money in it. This was kind of in the Bilbao era, and they determined that they were going to make the city a place of interest to young people. And the result, I don't know, is a neighborhood called Museums Quartier. And they basically took the old, how do you say it, conference area and turned all the old buildings, moved museums in there, moved architects in there, moved creative industries in there, and created a very vibrant space in the middle of the city. Well, one result of this is that 20 years on, the face of their tourists has changed. Young tourists are important just for the same reason that you want young people to buy other products, because they have a longer lifespan as consumers than a 65-year-old, apparently. And I think that the other aspect of it is that Vienna, on the World City Rankings, and I think this is completely astounding, and it's a really important lesson, Vienna is now, in the top city categories, number 5 in innovation. Would you have thought that? And number 2 in livability. And there is a very clear relationship always between livability and innovation, because innovative people want to live in places that are going to be enjoyable to live in. Other examples of creative clusters that have been successful in Beijing is the 798 district, which consists of museums and galleries and artist studios, and Saint-Quatre in Paris, which is an old mortuary, which has been turned into a similar creative center. Okay, in Amsterdam, they've taken a very direct approach. I always think Amsterdam has moved from red light city to green light city. You know, it was famous for its red light district and prostitution and drugs and all those things being legal. That actually ran its course. It was, and is no longer considered to be a really good attraction for this new kind of tourist that Javier was talking about. And one of the things they've done for their own people is create a center for helping creative industries to be more successful. And that also becomes a hub where, if you are in a creative industry here in Bilbao and you go to Amsterdam, you can go to Creative Amsterdam, you can visit it, and they can direct you to meet other people in similar businesses to yours or complementary businesses to yours, so that you can do business together. I think very much like we're seeing in the fair here today. I'm really impressed with that, and that's a great initiative. Festivals are also interesting, and I'd like to say that the example here is one in my home city, which is Toronto, which is Luminato. There are big festivals, and I know there's a very big rock festival here in Bilbao, which is extremely successful, that have big investment attached to it. Luminato is a multi-arts festival. It has a huge investment, $10 million a year. That's big for a festival. And they invested that way to get an intense, fast build. And that's great. And it mainly has an impact on the city and on building the creative city. But at the same time, it's important to have small little festivals that are, I'd say, small but deep. And my favorite example is Subtle Technologies. I don't know if that translates very well, Subtle Technologies, but it's grown very, very slowly over 15 years to be something internationally very significant. Low budget, kind of funky, technology people from every sector get together and create stuff, whether it's in dance or painting or art or science, and make new things happen. And in 15 years, it's come from being almost a little, very obscure festival to something that is internationally known by the creative industries that are looking for that kind of talent. New York, of course, the obvious example. I don't think I need to say anything except that cultural tourism, it certainly is a premium city without a doubt, and a huge generation of wealth from tourism, and hopefully they recover well from the recent storm. Just a word, and I'm almost finished my time allotment and my presentation about the Chicago Plan. The Chicago Plan is something you can download. It's been downloaded 52,000 times from the internet, and you just go on the internet and go Chicago Cultural Plan, and you can get it very easily. And I would love to know what you think about it, because it involved so many people. It involved 4 categories: people, places, policies, and then planning culturally. It has 10 priorities. The top, all based on citizens voting about priorities. It's a very radical and unusual way to develop a cultural plan. This is a city of great museums, by the way, great theater, great opera, great everything. But the idea was to involve people, find out what they wanted. The number 1 thing, art education in the schools. Number 2, retaining artists by providing cheap live-work space. Number 3, having a global level of event, because they're very weak on innovation and they're weak on international tourism. So as strong a city as they are, they have very real weaknesses that they want to address. Planning culturally and valuing neighborhoods. We worked with the citizens to come up with the idea that every neighborhood should have its own cultural planner that links to the city and make sure that even poor neighborhoods, and they have much violence in their neighborhoods, by the way, very serious problems in some neighborhoods, so wealth and poverty in different parts of the city, but that even all those neighborhoods have the ability to do cultural planning. When I met with the mayor about 10 days ago to talk about the cultural plan and what he thought, he said, well, I really like this planning culturally because he said, and the idea there, every single department of the city has to work with artists. You see, they don't have much money. You know, as Javier said, and as we all know, we're not in an era where we can just build another Guggenheim. Chicago can't just build another Millennium Park. And those of you would know that bean shape, that's the great sculpture by Anish Kapoor in Millennium Park. But if you are still going to build sewers, you're still going to paint roads, you're still going to build some new subway stations or repair them, and if those departments, and you still have social services and welfare and health, and if those departments are mandated that they must, the mayor has to say, they must work with artists, then you create jobs for artists, artists will stay, and you create a more beautiful, more interesting community. And I can't think of a better way of expressing it. When Rahm Emanuel, you know, he's a tough guy. You maybe saw him on television during the election campaign, and he said to me, well, I can't understand. Why does the stripe down the middle of the road have to be white? Why can't it be pink? That's the way he's thinking. This is a tough mayor of a tough city in a tough time. Why can't it be pink? And wanting artists to bring their vision into the daily fabric of the life of people in Chicago. So 3 recommendations, just to conclude our presentation, are first of all, wherever you live. If you're in Bilbao, of course, we're speaking here in this great city, aim for the eventful city. Second, plan culturally. And I think I've explained what that means. And finally, engage the community in the planning and in the reality. Think of the community not as consumers of culture, but as creators of culture, and treat them that way. And you will have a truly premium city in which to live and work. So that's how you can find us. And as I say, if you just go on the internet, you'll also www. Chicago Cultural Plan 2012, and you can download the plan. We're proud of it. And the more important thing, so is the people of Chicago. So thank you.